Very good evening, all. The meeting is called to order. So, Speaker of the Day, Captain Naveen Nagapagaru, friends, family members, and guests. A very warm welcome to you all. I thank Captain Naveen Nagapagaru for accepting our request and for joining us today to address us. Thank you, sir. It is very inspiring to hear you. It is even more special on this Independence Day meeting of our club. Now I request Rotarian Sharda to introduce Captain Naveen Nagappa to the August gathering.
Good evening, everybody. I deem it a privilege to introduce the speaker for this evening, Captain Naveen Nagappa. He hails from Hubli, Dharwad district and is a graduate in mechanical engineering from the Bapuji Institute of Engineering and Technology, Davangere. To realize his childhood dream of serving the nation, he decided to join the Indian Army. After successful completion of his training at the IMA Dehradun, Captain Naveen A.N. joined the 13th Battalion of the Jammu and Kashmir Rifles Regiment during 1999. He volunteered to participate in the Kargil War. With just 6 months of service behind him, he bravely led a team of 120 soldiers to fight the enemy at point 4875. During the same attack, he had the privilege to lead the attack along with Rifleman Sanjay Kumar and Captain Vikram Batra, who were both awarded the Paramveer Chakra. Captain Naveen fought very courageously during the war, destroying many enemy bunkers and eliminating many enemy soldiers. He had to fight the enemy in biting cold without food or water for more than 60 hours. During the final assault, he got severely injured by an enemy grenade, sustaining injuries to both his legs. After 21 months of hospitalization and 8 major surgeries, he was declared medically unfit to serve in the army and he was discharged from the army. Due to his bravery shown during the Kargil War, he was awarded the Sena Medal for gallantry. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. Naveen Nagappa.
Captain.
First of all, I would like to thank Rotary Club of Jubilee Hills for having given me this opportunity. As the club's tagline goes, Rotary opens opportunities. Indeed, it has opened up an opportunity for me also. And the opportunity has been granted for me for the second time. First time, I was there at Hyderabad itself, and second time today on a live session. Thank you so much. I'm thankful, more grateful to you people for Rotarian Club, because we have taken a lot of pains to tell our children about pre-independence struggle. Before independence, what was the struggle we went through, what were the pains, what were the sacrifices, but never have we made an attempt, an effort to educate our children, to educate ourselves about the pain and sacrifice of a soldier to maintain that independence. I'm glad that Rotary Club of Jubilee Hills has taken this initiative to understand the pain, the sacrifices of a soldier, and I'm very thankful for that. Coming to my experiences of Kargil War, in the next 25 to 30 minutes, the time slot which has been allotted to me, I would like to restrict myself to that, probably 5 minutes shorter than that, so that, in case of any questions from the team, they can be short. Okay, as told in the introduction speech that I belong to a place called Hubli, which is in Karnataka, Dharwad district. Did my schooling there, completed my engineering, and many of people are keen to know what made me to join the defense forces, because generally in the southern part of the India, people are not very keen to join the defense forces because of lack of awareness, lack of the passion to do something, or as all the people say in the North India that we were not exposed to war. That's why we don't get into the armed forces. Whatever be the reason, my reason was pretty simple. I just wanted to join the army, join the defense forces, because I was fascinated by the uniform. the NCC officer whom I had come across, the way he used to conduct himself, the way he used to command, the way he used to give orders, that fascinated me. I used to tell myself during my college days that I have to don the uniform in whatever way I can. I should don the uniform because I strongly felt once you get commissioned as a lieutenant, once you go through the training, once you become an army officer, the uniform what we wear and the stars they give on your shoulders, I told myself, 2 stars on my shoulder are better than thousands in the sky. So that was the fascination which, that was a passion which I joined the defense forces. It was in the year 1997, 98, 96, 97, I completed my engineering. And that was the time, there was a boom of IT sector. My course mates who had done my engineering together, they were all, most of them had come down to Bangalore and, trying to upgrade themselves. Computer boom was just happening then. A lot of my course mates who were settled in Bangalore, they were just wanting to get into MS. They wanted to do to MBA, computer sector, doing a lot of courses, preparing themselves for the higher studies and all that. But I, for one, was very sure that I'm going to join the defense forces. I went through the service selection board interview, got through in the very first attempt. Till then, I had not revealed it to my friends that I'll be joining the defense forces, because army those days was not a very well-paying job. It was not lucrative at all. That's the reason, I never wanted to be made fun of. So that's why I had not informed my friends that I'll be joining the defense forces. Once I got through the service selection board, I got selected. And when the call letter came that in the next 4 months or so, I'll be joining Indian Military Academy, that is the time I decided to tell to my friends. As you all know, I got selected in Bangalore. All of my friends, most of them had selected in Bangalore itself. Evening as such, we all got together. I just called for a party. We all got together, and during the party, I took an opportunity and told them that I've got selected for the defense forces and I'll be joining Indian Military Academy. They were taken aback. They were shocked to say, because that was the least expected profession those days. As I told you, it's not lucrative at all. I don't know what they started telling. All my friends started telling me, Naveen, what are you going to do with your life? Why are you, messing it up? Look at us. We will be doing courses. We'll become software engineers. We are preparing for GMAT. We'll be joining reputed IIMs, or we'll be going to MS for higher studies. We'll be earning a lot. And what are you going to do? What are you going to earn? What are you going to do with your life? I had only one thing to tell them. I just told all of them, yes, I may not earn much. I may not have a big bank balance. I may not have a luxurious bungalow. I may not have, well-to-do four-wheeler. Yes, I may not have that. I may not earn that much, but yes, I will earn at least 100 salutes a day. The moment I said that, I'll earn at least 100 salutes a day, that shut their mouth. They just couldn't talk anything after that. So that it was with that passion that I joined the defense forces. I wanted to do something for the nation. In the year, I joined in 1997 Indian Military Academy, trained about 1 year there, and got commissioned as a lieutenant in December 1998. And I joined a unit called 13th Battalion Jammu and Kashmir Rifles, which was placed in a place called Sopur, which is in midst of J&K. So to say, we are not in the border. January 1999, I joined the unit in Sopur, and whenever an officer joins, he's given a buddy, he's given a helper. The reason for that is a helper and an officer always operate in pairs. We always operate in pairs. A team, the entire team which goes for an attack, and most of the attacks happens in the night. So whenever we go for an attack, we always operate in pairs. We always operate in buddy systems. The simple reason being, if one person gets shot, it may so happen that nobody else will realize that one person has got shot. So if two people go together in a buddy pair and as an entire team, there is every possibility that if one person gets shot, his buddy will come to know that his sahab has got shot, and he can be retrieved. He can be, attended to. That's the reason we have always operated buddy pair. So when I entered a unit, I was given a buddy known as Sham Singh, and I was very fond of him. Later on, we developed a very good bonding. So January I joined. January till May, we kept on, we were into counter-insurgency operations. If you know about a place called Pattan and Sopur in J&K, it is known as the hotbed of militancy. There are a lot of militant activities which happen there. So we were into counter-insurgency operations, to neutralize the militants, to burst their hideouts. We are into all such activities. And in the year May 1999, it was in mid-May 1999, the Kargil war commenced. And once it commenced, our unit, that is 13th Battalion Jammu and Kashmir Rifles, we were told to move to the war sector, that is Kargil sector. And we were given 48 hours time. We packed up and started moving towards the war area. Now, a lot of people will be wondering, there are a lot of people who ask me this question. That's why, I just wanted to clear your doubt so that, you also don't carry the same doubt. There are a lot of people who ask me when I narrate this, you were in a particular sector. You had to move to a war sector. Were you not afraid of were you not afraid? Didn't you think about your parents? Because in the war sector, anything could have happened to you. For that, you'll have to understand the background of the Kargil war. The background was, I don't want to get into too much of background, wherein we conducted a nuclear blast, and as expected, around 13 days later, Pakistan also conducted a nuclear blast. There was a lot of international sanctions which were imposed on both the countries. But the thing is, the stretch of from Srinagar to Leh is a stretch of about 400 odd kilometers, 300 odd kilometers. It is full of hillocks. It is full of big hills. Not every post can be guarded. Not every post can be held. So what we do is, few selected posts which are of a vantage position, which are advantageous position and overlooking the national highway, those peaks are occupied. And due to intense snow, all the posts cannot be mentioned throughout the year. Due to intense snow, what we do is, just before the snow starts falling, we vacate the posts. And as soon as the snow starts melting, we reoccupy the posts. It is being done year on, year on, year on. As we do it, Pakistan also follow the same procedure. They also vacate their post, and as soon as the snow melts, they come and occupy the post. This was happening for ages together, and it was a gentleman's agreement. There is no set written rule like that, but it was a gentleman's agreement. We should have learnt our lessons that Pakistan is not a gentlemanly, it's a rogue nation. But we learnt it the hard way. In the year 1999, what they did was, as soon as the snow melted, or just before the snow melted, instead of occupying their post, they came and occupied our posts. And when the Indian Army came to know about this, we sent a team of reconnaissance mission. Reconnaissance is basically to go there, gather intelligence, and come back. And their mission is not to fight. A team led by an officer called Lieutenant Saurabh Kalia and 5 other men of a regiment called 4 Jat, they go on a reconnaissance mission. They were of 4 Jat regiment. They went to a post called Bajrang post just to gather intelligence, and the intention was not to fight. When they go there, these were just 6 people led by an officer called Lieutenant Saurabh Kalia. They were carrying limited amount of ammunition. But unfortunately, what happened was, on the Bajrang post, there were around 100 Pakistanis which had occupied the post. Our men had gone there just to assess the intelligence, what is the extent of occupation, what are the number of people out there, what are the weapons, what type of weapons they are carrying. But unfortunately, they were heavily outnumbered, firstly. And secondly, the Pakistanis sight our reconnaissance team, they sight our team, and when they're exposed, and there starts a firefight. The firefight is on, and you can imagine there are 100 people sitting on top, and these are just 6 people trying to climb from down. They were heavily outnumbered and they were exposed. And it's not that they didn't give a fight; they fought till the last bullet. And finally, when they expended all their ammunition, there was absolutely no way out. The Pakistanis encircled them and took them prisoner of war. We, as a gentleman nation, we are a signatory to Geneva Convention of how to treat prisoner of war. So is Pakistan. But as I told you, being a rogue nation, they displayed their barbarity by, these 6 people who were taken prisoner of war. Imagine, ladies and gentlemen, 21 days they were kept under captivity, 21 days. And 22nd day, when the bodies of these 6 soldiers were handed over back to the Indian Army, not only the Indian Army, the entire world was shocked to see the state of those 6 bodies, 6 soldiers. You'll be astonished to know their skull was fractured, their eyes were gouged out, their lips were cut, tongues were cut, teeth were broken, hot iron rods were pierced into their ears. There were cigarette burn marks all over the body, and even the genitals were not spared. When there was hardly any life left in those bodies, they were shot at point blank range and sent to Indian Army as a gift from the Pakistani Army. That is the time, every Indian soldier's blood started boiling. We told ourselves, the harder you hit us, the stronger we are going to bounce back. And bounce back we did. Ladies and gentlemen, what happened for the next 50 days was a saga of grit, determination, bravery, sacrifice, but ultimately resulted, at the end of the war, it resulted in every inch of the territory that was occupied by the Pakistanis was taken back. And every feature which was occupied was taken back, and tricolor was hoisted on every feature. Uh, to say, to narrate the entire episode of a 50-day war in which 10 units were awarded the Bravest of the Brave award. There were 4 Paramveer Chakras which were awarded. And in the history of independent India, it has happened for the only once it has happened that 2 Paramveer Chakras have been awarded for a battle in a same battle. That is Captain Vikram Batra, Post Thomas Albright, and Rifleman Sanjay Kumar. And I'm glad to say that again with a heavy heart that I belong to the same unit and I fought in the same feature called 4875. Cutting the story short, rather than narrating the whole experiences, what I would like to restrict is I would like to restrict myself to my unit, that is 13th Battalion Jammu and Kashmir Rifles. We carried out 2 attacks. The first attack was on 5140. I didn't have any role to in play that. I was just in a reserve. The attack was led by Captain Vikram Batra and Captain Sanjeev Singh Jamwal. These 2 young officers made a fantastic effort, and they executed the plan in such a meticulous manner that flat at 24 hours, the feature was won, and without a single casualty on our side. Now I would like to tell you, Captain Vikram Batra, he was just 24, 25 years old then. You imagine fighting all the against all the odds. The Pakistanis are sitting fortified on top. We are in open, climbing up, braving bullets flying past left and right, shell landing over 5 meters, 10 meters ahead. Never know what's going to happen. In spite of that, he fights the war bravely. He neutralizes all the enemies, captures all the bunkers, and imagine an officer of his caliber standing on top of that feature and telling "Ye dil mange more." That was Captain Vikram Batra for you. He was a man with the nerves of steel. That was the first attack. The second attack was on point 4875, in which I had a role to play. Generally, you come to know about in the movies you hear, you would have read in the newspapers, you would have seen story, you would have read about stories, seen in TVs, movies, bullets getting fired, somebody getting shot, the victory, death, you would have all seen that. But what you don't realize is what goes to a soldier's mind just before the war. And I have been witness to it. There are very emotional scenes. The psyche of a soldier, the mentality of a soldier, the thought process of a soldier just before he gets into war. 4th July 1999 was the date which was decided that we'll attack point 4875. 3 days before that, my buddy, my helper, Sham Singh was not keeping well. He was down with fever. So I sent across a message to him that he'll not be participating in the war because we are going to war. We don't know how long it's going to take. The moment Sham Singh came to know about this, he came running to me and he says, quote unquote, he says, "Sab अच्छे दिन में आपके साथ था. अभी बुरा वक्त आया हुआ है. मैं आपको अकेला कैसे छोड़ दूं?" Quote unquote again, he continues, he says, "अगर आपको कुछ हो गया तो मैं अपने घर में, अपने पलटन में मुंह कैसे दिखाऊंगा?" Just imagine, that is the attachment we had. In spite of he not keeping well, he just didn't want me to go alone. He wanted to accompany me. Seeing his Joe, seeing his condition, seeing his attachment, I couldn't have said no. So I said, "हाँ भाई श्याम सिंह, ready हो जा, तू भी चलना साथ में." So fourth afternoon, I had lunch with my men. So that to assess their mood, I was trying to put in Josh into them, trying to bring up their morale, trying to muster Josh into them. We have to, there is a certain procedures which we follow. 120 men, I had to make them stand in front of them. And there are certain formalities. I explained the whole scenario, what is the plan, who will be carrying what weapons, who will be carrying rocket launcher, who will be carrying medium machine gun, light machine gun, what will be the radio set communication methodology, what will be the frequency, everything was discussed. And after that, there are certain formalities which we follow. The first formality is, I'll have to tell them something called unposted letters. Unposted letters is, I have to tell my men, 120 men standing in front of me. It's called Charlie Company, C Company. I was the team leader of that. Major Gurpreet Singh was there, but I was in the main role. So 120 men making them stand in front of me, and I'll have to tell them, "Jawano, abhi aap ek patra likho, unposted letters. In case you don't come back from war, the letter will be handed over to whomsoever you addressed. And in case you come back, the letter will be handed over back to you. It may look pretty simple, but imagine, put yourself in my shoes. I was just about 23, 24 years old then, just 6 months of service behind me, and making 120 people stand in front of you and telling them that you may not come back from war. That effectively means you may die in war. No matter how strong an officer you are, you will not be able to communicate. Your legs will shiver. But yes, looking into their eyes, you have to tell them you will have to write a letter in case you don't come back from war. So I had to do that. I did that. The second formality we do is deposit all our belongings. Now, why do we do that? I take out my rank, I take out my nameplate, I take out my wallet, I take out my identity card. If I'm wearing a locket, everything will be deposited. Again, it looks simple. What's the big deal in that? You deposited an item, you come back from war, you collect it. It is not so, ladies and gentlemen. I have seen my soldiers, depositing everything, and rather when they take out their wallet, opening it, and with the intense look, tears rolling down their eyes, looking at their near and dear ones. Probably that wallet, they had a photo of their family, his wife, their children, parents, could be anybody, giving an intense look and tears rolling down their eyes. What would they be thinking? Can you just imagine? Probably they are thinking that they're seeing their dear and near ones for the last time. They'll not even get a chance to see in case of any eventuality. Tears rolling down their eyes, they go and deposit them. That is how emotional it is. At the end, when this formality was over, we have a Panditji conducts Havan, and later on at the end of it, there's our war cry called Durga Mata Ki Jai. So it was fourth evening, just about the day had broken. It was just about to happen night. The sun had set, and that is the time there's something called our war cry. Our war cry, 13 Chakri war cry was Durga Mata Ki Jai. And once I said Durga Mata Ki Jai, all 120 people put in unison when they said Durga Mata Ki Jai. It was an electrifying feeling, let me tell you. It was an electrifying feeling. The atmosphere was electrifying. And the moment they said Durga Mata Ki Jai, till then probably we had some fear of uncertainty. We had some family commitments, social obligations. But once we said Durga Mata Ki Jai and set foot towards the future which we are tasked to occupy, there was only one thing in our mind. Come what may, whatever be the consequences, Tricolor will be hoisted on point 4875. That was the only thing in our mind. Fourth evening, we set for the attack. And when I say point 4875, it is a name of a hillock. It's a name of a feature. Not all the features can be named. There are so many of them. One feature has been named as Tiger Hill, one as Tololing. But since all of the features cannot be marked, named, we mark it by altitude in the mark. 4875 is 4,875 meters above sea level. You can't even imagine what kind of an atmosphere is there. It is called rarefied atmosphere. The oxygen which we breathe right now, you will have just maybe around 50% oxygen level there. So every time you take 10 steps, you'll have to rest. And God forbid if you're carrying about 25 to 30 kgs with all the ammunitions, guns, weapons you're carrying, that will make the task almost impossible. And the gradient, if it is around 60 to 80 degrees, God save you. And imagine climbing with such difficulty. Pakistan is sitting on top, fortified, well fortified. We are in the open. It's not like swimming against the tide. It's like walking against the bullets. There's no place to hide. There's no place to run. Where will you run? Where will you hide? A shell can land right next to you and it can blow you into pieces. And it is not that the 0.4875, it's a hill wherein on top of that there are few Pakistanis sitting fortified. It's not that. There are the series. It's a huge, huge hill. And every feature has to be cleared. There are a lot of sangars and bunkers built by them. We have to clear one by one, and reach to the top. So fourth night we set for the attack. Fourth entire night we travel, go towards first bunker. So it was not even daylight. Fifth early, it was not even early morning in the fifth. We were still in the fifth night and the day had not broken. Fifth early morning, we came across the first three bunkers of Pakistanis. Then I made up a plan. In case all 120 people move together, there will be chances that that surprise element will be lost. The Pakistanis were not aware we were there. So I wanted to maintain the surprise element. So I selected a team of 10 people. And we had distributed ourselves that the left bunker will be attacked by 3 of my men. The right bunker will be attacked by 3 of my men. I, with the center bunker, which was on a narrow ledge, I, with 4 of my men, will attack the center feature. The plan was that all 3 teams simultaneously will move very close to the bunker without the Pakistanis coming to know that we were there. And by one signal, we all three groups will take out our hand grenades, lob the hand grenades, and once they are stunned, once they with the intensity of the blast a hand grenade causes, they'll be under a state of shock. That is the time we had decided we will open our weapons and pump in all the bullets into them. So that's what we did. We crawled very close to the feature. All 3 bunkers, all 3 teams reached the bunker simultaneously. And one signal I gave, we lobbed the hand grenade, and we took out our weapons and fired whatever bullets we had. So somehow we managed to capture these three bunkers. By the time Pakistanis ahead had realized that the Indian army has attacked, they opened up fire. And once we occupy the post, we have to neutralize, we have to sanitize the bunker. The enemy bodies which are lying there have to be taken out. If there are any mines there, they have to be diffused. This is called as sanitization. We were occupying those bunkers which we had occupied. And it was just about daybreak, 5th early morning ho raha tha. That is the time I turned back to see whether the right and the left bunker have been occupied properly or not. And what I saw, ladies and gentlemen, was one of my soldiers with his face down had fallen down. I could not make out who he was. It was early morning. I run towards that person. I was telling myself, oh God, let him be alive. At least I can send him and get him treated. And imagine my state when I run towards him and twist the body, young sun rays falling on his face. He was none other than Shyam Singh, my buddy, my helper, who was not keeping well, whom I told not to join. But still he joined. I felt so bad. I felt so devastated that I just want to cry. I just want to scream my lungs out. But imagine the irony of a situation. Imagine the irony of an officer. I couldn't even cry because, as an officer, as a team leader, if I start crying, there are 100 of my men, 100 of my jawans who are looking at me. And will they fight? Will they lose the will to fight the war? With that intention, I just couldn't cry. I just, bite my teeth very hard. And then, I had to carry on. It had another jolt was waiting me when I came to know that when I was hospitalized, I was given to understand Shyam Singh had written chit in his pocket. The chit read, "Is zindagi bhi kya hai zindagi, dushman ko mare bina, is zindagi bhi kya hai zindagi, maut ke bina." Ladies and gentlemen, this is camaraderie for you in Indian Army. 6 months back, Captain Naveen was somebody else, Shyam Singh was somebody. We had not even seen each other's face, not even heard about each other. But just 6 months, here is a Jawan and an officer. So much of camaraderie, nowhere you will find but in Indian Army. The incident which I narrated was of 5th early morning, 5th entire day we fought, 5th night we fought, 6th day we fought. Every inch of the territory, we run from 1 inch, we keep a step ahead. That means we have occupied that much territory, 1 foot of territory. From one boulder to another boulder we are running. That means we have occupied that much of territory. We are moving that much closer to the objective. Every time we attack, there is a counter attack. So this was happening. Incessant fire was happening. Of course, there were lull periods. That is the time, 6th afternoon, my commanding officer, Colonel Y.K. Joshi, comes on the radar set and sends me a message that Naveen, 4th afternoon you had a meal. It's 6th afternoon. It's been 48 hours. You have not had anything. Should I send something to you to eat? But I said, I know ki matlab, food has to come right from the bottom. However, ammunition, we would have had an ammunition dump somewhere in between. It's easier for me to fetch up the ammunition rather than food. So I communicate to him, sir, aap khane ki chinta chhod dijiye. Forget about food. For 48 hours, we've been fighting continuously. We are short of ammunition. Please send me some ammunition. Now you would be wondering, how did we survive 48 hours without food and water? Believe me, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I say this. In the month of July also, the peaks are snow-capped. There will be snow on the peaks. And because of the shelling, the ice on top of that would be blackish. And God forbid, if somebody gets shot, the blood oozes out, it becomes messy, the ice becomes messy. So the upper layer of the ice was what we took out, and the lower layer of the ice, which was relatively fresh, that is what we ate to satisfy our hunger, to satisfy our thirst. That's how we survived. And people ask me when I narrate this, people ask me, weren't you tired? You didn't eat for 48 hours, you didn't feel tired. Let me tell you, tiredness is just a state of mind. If you feel you're tired, you're tired. It is mental strain which drains out. When one of my soldier had got injured both in the legs, both the legs were hit by a bullet. And he was not able to walk, he was not able to stand up. I had to put him in a stretcher. And when I put him in a stretcher, when sending him back, when sending him down, he says, साहब मुझे माफ कर देना, आखिर तक आपके साथ नहीं लड़ पाया. That is the time I was drained emotionally. When in one instance, when a shell had landed some distance and the splinter had opened the stomach of my soldier, and almost all the parts of the stomach were almost out. We were trying to fill it and fill it with a gauze piece. And that is, we knew कि मतलब he may not survive. But when the soldier asked me, साहब मैं जिंदा तो रहूंगा ना, अपने बीवी बच्चों को देख पाऊंगा ना, that is the time I was drained out emotionally. When one of the soldier who had got shot through the neck, and it was very difficult for him to breathe, and he's head on my lap, he breathed his last. He passed away in front of me. That is the time I was drained emotionally, totally. As I told, physical strain is just a state of mind. It is the emotional drains which drains you out. Till 7th early morning, there was attack, there was counter attack. We had reached a position by 7th early morning. We had reached a position, wherein there was only one ledge of bunker which was left. And had we occupied that, Pakistan would have been, taken out from that place. Point 4875 would have been ours. 7th early morning, I was sitting in a bunker which we had occupied from the Pakistanis, which we had taken back from the Pakistanis. There was a big boulder in between us, and on the other side of the boulder was the Pakistanis' last ledge. So whenever I got an opportunity, I had an AK-47 in my hand. I used to climb that boulder, fire, and then again duck down. So 7th early morning, they lob a grenade, hand grenade. I'm sure you would have seen in movies as a pin nikal ke what they lob. That's called a hand grenade. They lob a hand grenade, and that lands right in front of my feet. Let me tell you by how the hand grenade is designed. You remove the pin and you lob a grenade, and once you lob, तो तभी फट जाएगा, तो जो फेंकने वाला है उसको इंजरी हो जाएगा. So what they do is, it has got a time lag, it has got a fuse of 4 seconds. You take out the pin, lob a grenade, it goes and drops. After some time, it blasts. So lag time of 4 seconds. They say it's got a killing radius of anywhere between 5 to 10 meters. And if the grenade blasts here, anything in and around 10 meters will be shredded, will be torn apart into pieces. Chur chur ho jayega, piece ho jayega. Such a grenade is lying right in front of my feet. I couldn't have got up. If I get up, I'll be exposed. They'll shoot me. I can't kick it because it's an L-shaped bunker. If I'm sitting on one side, two of my men are sitting on the other side. So I couldn't kick it also. So the best thing I could do was I tried to pick it up and try to lob it back, throw it back. You'll imagine in any festivals you light a cracker and how far you run. But here, a live grenade landing right in front of my feet, I picked it up and tried to lob it back. But you will appreciate, to lob anything, you need a proper swing, which I didn't get. I picked it up, tried to throw it back, but unfortunately, it hit the boulder, rolled back again, and fell in front of my feet. The hand grenade, which I tried to lob, I didn't get a proper swing, so it hit the boulder and rolled back and fell in front of my feet again. Ladies and gentlemen, I have seen death at a very close range. Here is a grenade for which I have already lost, out of 4 seconds, probably I've lost 2 to 3 seconds. I've lost just about 1 to 2 seconds to go. And I knew that I'm not going to survive this attack. The loss of Naveen will be a great loss to my parents. But imagine, in those 1 odd second, in those fraction of a second, I felt like everything flashing in front of me, like, my childhood, my parents, my brother, my sisters. It was like everybody's face flashing in front of my face. I in that point of time, I'm telling myself, you are going to die, Naveen. Your parents will be devastated. But imagine if you sit like this, the grenade blast in the upper part of the entire body will be blown off. What will they send home Naveen as? Some muscle pieces, some bone pieces put in a gunny bag and sent home. Will my parents ever excuse me? Will they not want to see Naveen's face for the last time? So I had only one prayer on my lips. I prayed to God, God, yes, I know I'm not going to survive, but at least let my face be intact. Let my parents get an opportunity to see my face. With this prayer, I jumped to my right. The moment I jumped, there was a huge blast. The blast was so intense that for the next 10 to 15 seconds, I did not realize what has happened. I did not know what has happened. I did not know whether I'm alive or dead. There was ringing sound in my ears. There was dust all over. By the time, there was smell of cordite, smell of burnt flesh. The boulder which was right next to me was all splattered with blood. I was in a state of hallucination. By that time, Captain Vikram Batra came running towards my post. Captain Vikram Batra, the first thing he said when the dust was just settling down, the bunker which was sitting had collapsed. I was under debris. Captain Vikram Batra came and said, Naveen, tu darna nahi, मैं आ गया हूँ. That was like, music to my ears. I don't know, पता नहीं कहाँ से जोश आ गया मुझे. When he told this, he was already firing because the counter attack was on. The Pakistanis were running towards my post. Captain Vikram Batra started running towards my post. I also got excited, picked up my AK-47 and started firing back towards them. And finally, we managed to stall the counter attack. I had to crawl down now. I had to crawl down, grew out about 150 meters. Imagine, both my legs injured. I couldn't have got up. So all I could do was I had to crawl. I had to crawl in the sense that pull my body with my hands like this and went about 150 meters. The state of my leg was pretty bad, very bad. That is the time one of my soldiers came running towards my post, running towards the place where I was sitting behind a boulder. And he picked me up on a shoulder and he started from running from one boulder to another boulder. And when he's running from one boulder to another boulder, I could see the Pakistanis firing. I could see the bullets hitting the ice. They don't want to, let the person who is injured be evacuated. They want maximum casualties. But imagine the state of my state of mind then. My right leg was literally dangling. It was, it was just, it was hardly anything left in that because of the blast. Had somebody held my, leg and pulled it apart, it would come apart. My Jawan is carrying me like this and running from one boulder to another boulder, trying to get me down. I'm turning back and seeing if my leg falls down. I wanted to take it, give it to a doctor and ask him to stitch. That was the state of mind I was in. I was, you don't understand that point of time what's practical, also impractical. Ladies and gentlemen, I got hurt early in the morning. By the time they brought me down, it was late in the evening. There was too much of blood loss. There was too much of infection. So they placed me under a dangerously ill list. That means I could have either survived, I could have passed away. There was 50% chances. So any person who is being placed in such a list has to be evacuated to the next hospital the next morning. 7th night I reached, they give me a sedative, I was made to lie. And the next morning when I woke up, the helicopter was waiting for me on the other side. I was put on a helicopter, I was put on a stretcher, loaded onto a helicopter, and the helicopter pilot was told not to fly very high, because if he flies very high, we may get exposed and they may shoot us. By the time, I was not aware what was happening on point 4875. What is the state of the war? Battle has been won, not won. I was not aware. And I was put on a stretcher and loaded onto a helicopter. The helicopter takes off, nursing assistant sitting next to me. The helicopter takes off, goes to some distance. And that is the time my nursing assistant woke me up. He said, कि साहब डॉक्टर ने उठने से मना किया हुआ है. But he said, साहब वो देखिए 0.4875 पे तिरंगा लहरा रहा है. The moment he said this, I was so thrilled. I was so elated. I was so happy. I told myself, Naveen, you have created history, no matter how small. It may be very small. Whenever Kargil war will be spoken about, whenever 0.4875 will be spoken about, your name will also be there. You have created history. Now it's immaterial whether you live, whether you die, but the mission has been accomplished. The task which has been given to you has been accomplished. I was so happy that I sat on the stretcher itself with much difficulty, saluted the national flag. That was a sight. That was what a sight to that was a sight to live for. That was a sight to die for. I saluted the national flag when I was about to lie down. I was just trying to lie down. That is the time nursing assistant again told me. He said कि साहब इसके लिए हमने कीमत चुकाई है. I was not aware what's happening. I asked him, उस्ताद हमने क्या कीमत चुकाई है? He said, साहब Captain Vikram Batra नहीं रहे. That hit me like a jolt. The moment he said कि Captain Vikram Batra नहीं रहे, शहीद हो गए, I was in a state of semi unconsciousness. I went into an unconscious state. I was the next time I woke up was in Srinagar hospital. They said I couldn't be treated there. I was shifted to Delhi hospital. Delhi base hospital, I couldn't be treated because of the infection had spread too much. And then they shifted to research and referral super specialty hospital. I was there in the hospital for 21 months. I would like to narrate one last incident. Out of those 21 months in the hospital where I underwent 8 major surgeries, the first 6 months were pretty bad. It was bad. Everything was in the bed. Whenever the injury was so bad, the infection was so much that they cleaned the wound, the nurse nursed the wound, They tie the bandage. Next day they open, it's full of pus. There was so much of stink. I couldn't walk. Everything had to be done on the bed. So that is the time, I went into a state of depression. I started cursing myself. I started abusing God. I started, shouting at people. I started thinking, ki, matlab, it's better I am dead than having made to go through this. I started asking God, why me? Why are you trying? Why are you testing me like this? You would have killed me there. It was better I was dead rather than having made to go through this. That is the time, an incident happens which changed the way I look at my life. As you know, there are many young officers who made the supreme sacrifice in Kargil war. One such friend of mine who was very dear to me, was very close to me. His mother was also equally close to me. We were very good, like it was like family friends. Although he was from different part of the country, we had met each other only during the academy. We had grown very close since we had trained together. And since he was close to me, his mother was also equally close to me. But that friend of mine did not come back from war. He made the supreme sacrifice. And when I was going into that state of depression, that is the time I was given to understand. I was given a message that auntie, that my friend who didn't come back from war, his mother is going to come and meet me. I didn't know when I was given the message in the evening. The entire night I couldn't sleep. I was thinking, if auntie comes tomorrow and if she poses me a question, Naveen, you have come back. Why did you leave my son there? How am I going to face her? What am I going to answer her? Next morning happens, auntie comes, sit with me for 1.5 hour. She had bought some soup. She shared a soup. We drank to had the soup together. And 1.5 hour later, she has not even uttered a single word about her son. And she's about to leave. She's already reached the door. You can say guilt feeling or something. I just couldn't resist myself. I told auntie, I called her out. Auntie, she turned back. No, I said, auntie, I'm really sorry. I couldn't have done anything. Your son was fighting in a different sector. I was in a different sector. We were miles apart. There's nothing I could have done to save your son. Auntie turns back and tells me, she says, Nabeen, the best gift a son can give to his mother or motherland is his body coming back wrapped in tricolor. There is no better gift than this to the mother. And she walks away. I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, for the next half an hour, I just couldn't understand what has hit me. Tears were rolling down my eyes. I was just looking at that fan in the ceiling without knowing what to do. Half an hour later, when I regained some sense, I started telling myself, yes, Naveen, you are alive. You are able to watch TV. You are able to read newspapers. You are able to speak to your family, but you are cursing yourself. You are under depression. You want to die. But look at this lady who has sacrificed her son and still says that's the best gift she has ever received. 21 months I was in hospital, 8 major surgeries. And finally, when the doctors felt that surgically I couldn't be, treated more, the state of my leg cannot be improved on a surgical basis, I was declared medically unfit to serve in army. And I came back to Hubli, quitting army with just 6 months of service. And, a lot of people tell me how unfortunate you joined the defense forces. War has happened after almost 30 years and you were in the thick of the battle, you get injured. So unfortunate. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I consider myself the most fortunate human being ever born on this world, because who else within a span of 6 months get to do something for the nation? Who else within a span of 6 months can contribute towards this nation, this great nation of ours? Who else can, sacrifice a part of their body in a feature which is unheard of, unknown of? Who else can get an opportunity to fight with two Paramveer Chakras on the same battle? And I am a fortunate one who have done all this. So that is the experiences which I wanted to narrate to you. I'm sorry, my apologies if I have taken around 5 minutes more than what I was allotted. If there are any questions, I would still open, time permitting, of course. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.
May I ask a question? Just curious to know, Captain, what are you doing now? What has the government or the nation done for you for the sacrifice that you've given, and when you've come back after only 6 months of service, 21 months in the hospital?
Nation has done more than what I had asked for, sir. The love, the blessings which has been showered upon a normal citizen. It's not being very humble. A soldier is fight and war. That's what I did. I've done nothing great. I've just did my job. But the kind of love, care, which has been shown to me, wherever I go, it is, I'm really indebted to the nation for having, showered so much of love, so much of blessings to me. And that is what I feel when the doctors had told me that I'll not be able to walk without any support. When I was medically boarded out of service, the doctors had told me you'll have to walk with the support for the rest of your life. But I had put myself through a lot of grind. And maybe the blessings of elders, senior citizens, the love of the citizens, I'm on my own. I do absolutely everything on my own. I walk without any support. That's the great for
Some
nothing
kind of
more.
a job you have?
I do work, sir. What had happened was, since I was a year before I joined the defense forces, after I was medically boarded out, I wrote my Indian got through, and I'm again in part of a central government job. I'm working as a competent engineer.
We are proud of you, Naveen.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Did we learn something out of the Kargil, Kargil war? I mean, did we, in the sense, we as Indian Army and as well as the policymakers, as well as the planners and also the establishment, I mean, the bureaucracy, any lessons that we extracted out of this Kargil?
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay, quick answer to that. Rather, 2 points quick points I would like to make. The first is regarding the question you have asked, and secondly, the subject which you have touched upon. The lessons which we have learned, there is a drastic change in the technology per se. There was no electronical surveillance which was implemented those days. We didn't have any facilities. It was all patrolling party used to go there, assess, see the situation, gather intelligence, and come back. That is how we used to operate 21 years back. But 21 years down the lane, the lessons which we have learned have been, to a large extent, have been implemented. I'm sure such an incident, such a foolhardiness, Pakistan is not going to make, because everything is, monitored through something called UAVs, remotely piloted aircrafts, or unmanned area vehicles. They can be monitored and they can be neutralized. The second point which I wanted to make was, again, as I said, there are a lot of lessons which have been learned. There are a lot of corrective actions. There are preventive actions which have already been put in place so that these things cannot happen. And the second quick point which I would like to mention is, you made a mention, sir, that you had gone to Kargil sector to. I'm sure you would have visited the war memorial. Related
Yes.
that, I just want to make one quick statement.
Dras.
Yeah, Dras mein. I had gone through, just at a tender age of 23, 24, I had seen so much of pain, death, so much of bloodshed, the pain which I had underwent. It was tremendous when I was driven down from, in that Jonga so-called ambulance, when I was driven down, when I was brought down in the hospitalization. There was too much of pain. Youngsters shouldn't say I had all seen all that. 20 years later, I got hurt on 7th July 1999 on a feature called 4875. And 20 years later, the entire team of my unit, 13th Battalion Jammu and Kashmir Rifles, same date on 7th July 2019, we all were taken there to the same feature. And once I landed there, I felt I have lived my life. I have lived my life. Because 20 years later, at the height of 16,000 feet, when you see the tricolor which has been hoisted on the feature you fought, and now it's Captain Batra's martyrdom is there. It's now called as Batra Top. Instead of 4875, it's now called as Batra Top. It was like, it was nostalgic feeling. We felt like we lost 17 soldiers there, total 17 members of Chakri Fair lost. It was like seeing all of them live there. And at 16,000 feet, when I saw that tricolor majestically flying high and I saluted that, I told myself, the pain which I've undergone was all worth it. I've lived my life. That's it I wanted to convey.
Hello, Vijay Lakshmi Shekhawat. I just want to say, भगवान करे आप जैसा बेटा सबको मिले, आप जैसा बहादुर बेटा सबको मिले. भगवान, मैं भी चाहती हूँ कि मेरा बेटा भी ऐसी हो, लेकिन मुझे नहीं है. मुझे बहुत, I'm feeling very sorry, I've become emotional. मेरा आशीर्वाद है बेटे, मैं 75 year old की हूँ. मेरा आशीर्वाद है, जन्माष्टमी के दिन आपको मैं आशीर्वाद दे रही हूँ. भगवान करे हर माँ को आप जैसा बेटा मिले. बस इतनी सी बात.
Thank you, madam. Thank you so much. Thank you for the blessings.
One more question.
Not question. Go ahead.
Have you been talking to children in schools and colleges about your experience and inspiring them to join the army, especially in the south of India?
I absolutely do that, ma'am. Whenever I get an opportunity, I go to more so with colleges. The basic idea is to inculcate the sense of nationality, inculcate the sense of patriotism, because that is the time when you can mold the way they think. And I go to a lot of schools and colleges, and
You do.
to add to that, and for the benefit of all audience also, there are a lot of applause which was given to me, and whenever I go to the schools and colleges, I make it a point to mention the same thing. The thing is, you have heard, you have learned about my experiences as Captain Naveen Nagappa. What I tell others as well as this audience is, there are 527 sacrifices of soldiers who sacrificed their lives, thousands of them who have got injured, for whom life has never been the same again. So it is not the experiences of Captain Naveen Nagappa. It is not that you are applauding or you are appreciating, you are showing concern, care, and love for Captain Naveen Nagappa. It is a tribute to all those 527 soldiers who sacrificed their lives, thousands who got injured, and since independence as well as pre-independence, who was fought for the nation. It is in honor of those people. It's not my credit. I don't take the credit. That's all on those behalf of those people.
Oh, that's a great attitude.
That's wonderful.
Wonderful attitude.
Really wonderful.
Thank you.
You can say you are still in service, Naveen.
Yeah.
Captain, have you documented or made this into a book, or with all these thoughts of yours, which can actually be spread in a more concrete and documented manner?
Somebody should make a movie.
I'm really honored, sir. Honored, and I don't know whether I'm worthy of it or not. I don't know whether I just did my job. I feel I just did my job.
नहीं, आप किताब तो आपको जरूर लिखना है. Because the philosophy behind what you are sharing can only come out in your words, and you won't be able to go physically all over the place, but a book
Absolutely.
can travel. And please do think about it. This is the second time I'm hearing you. And
I could make it out. Yes. We had met there. We had met in Hyderabad.
We had met at the yes.
We all came and took a photograph with you.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. And I still remember you had given me this advice that I should write a book.
Yes,
I remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm repeating it again today. Please consider it, because that will be a big gift that you'll be giving to the youngsters on, as you very rightly said, not just how we got independent, but how we are maintaining independence.
Absolutely, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to propose vote of thanks this wonderful evening. Mr. Captain Naveen, a true salute to the real hero.
Thank you, sir.
That's what I'd like to say. I feeling short of words to talk about after such a beautiful talk. I don't want to say anything much, but only just saluting to the real hero. And we are proud to have you this evening here to get to know how Kargil War is. We have witnessed this in several movies, but we never got an opportunity to hear from a real hero like you. So this evening we got an opportunity to look at you very closely, to hear what you said, experience what happens in the real war, rather than watching it in the movies. It's not only about the war experiences, but you have conveyed several aspects like confidence or otherwise patriotism. Several aspects we could carry this evening home. And I'm very happy on behalf of the entire RCGH for having you this evening, wonderful evening. And may you have the blessings of all mothers, brothers, sisters, and everyone. And let your life be very joyful and comfortable.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Let the service of yours to the nation be helpful to you in the days to come. And may you have a blessed life. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot.